What if we could go and get in a time machine and go 100 years in the future, and what do you think the field of evolutionary biology would be like? Do you think they'll look back on 21st century scientists and say, shake their heads and say those guys really got it, we're going down the wrong track, or do you think it'll be very different at all?
Do you want to go first, or shall I?
Yeah, I don't think that our successors will say those guys really had got it wrong. No, I think just as we look back 100 years and say the foundations were laid correctly uh, by theory and by observation and by experiment. So I'm hoping that in 100 years' time they'll look back at our knowledge and say, well, very incomplete, and they didn't know this and they didn't know that, but at least they had the fundamentals correctly understood. So what is likely to be the acquired knowledge in the next 100 years? Science progresses in both predictable and unpredictable, certain and uncertain ways, and one can easily identify some things which will be much better known in the future, and yet there are going to be many other things that we have no way of assessing. So in the first category, I would think in terms of such things as complex phenomena like brain structure and function, how the brain actually works, 84 billion neurons in our brains, how does it all put together, and can we make evolutionary sense of the wiring diagrams and the construct of our brains? Second one would be cancer. We don't know. We know a lot about cancer, but we certainly don't know anywhere near enough. And it is an evolutionary phenomenon in that cancer is within the body of an individual an ongoing evolutionary experiment of change, genetic change and then multiplication. Our successors will know very much more about that. And then we are already making discoveries that I think will be greatly enhanced and amplified in the future on the origin of life, how life actually began. At one end of, you might think of this as a spectrum of complexity, and at the other end, our own evolution, where we came from, who our ancestors were. We're making discoveries in the field of paleontology, which are really remarkable and are in the unpredictable category. Who would have guessed that we would have found bones of people that we now call hobbits from Flores Island in Indonesia, for example? And if anybody, say 50 years ago, had said, one day you might find ancestors of hominins who are not Neanderthals, but somewhat similar and who branched off the main line earlier, we now call them Denisovans. If somebody had said, now, I think there will be some discoveries of bones, maybe only fragmentary bones, that will fill in the picture a little bit, I don't think anybody at that time would have said, yes, and we'll have the molecular tools to be able to identify and age and characterize the individuals the individual that gave rise to the bones, that had the bones, and put that individual on the evolutionary tree of Homo sapiens. These are the unexpected things, and there must be a lot more of those yet down the road in the future.
So I think one of the exciting areas that will be explored is the evolution of consciousness, and also a much greater understanding of the evolution of language. And here I think we can go back to birds, because half the species of birds in the world today learn their song, the other half genetically determined. Amongst the birds that learn the song, there are some like Darwin's finches that learn them in a short period of time, and there are others that, like us, will learn throughout life and add to their repertoire throughout life. And then there are others where the song centres disappear in the winter and are sort of regrown again each spring, and so they sort of add on or change the song each year. And the song centres in the bird's brain are very similar to the song centres or the speech centres in the human brain, very similar to Broca and Wernicke's. And also we even have some of the same genes that are involved, like the FOXP2 gene that is involved. So these are just the beginning, and I think in 100 years we'll know much more about the origin of our ability, our language ability, and also much more about the evolution of consciousness as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I certainly hope that both of you enjoy your time at Charles Darwin University and in the Northern Territory.
We definitely will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Thank you.